Hello and welcome to the Still Standing series. I'm your host, Coach Violet Coots, and I'm happy to have my special guest with us today, Jeff Trinci. And I'm a Christian life coach, equipping and empowering individuals to live in their true identity and be who God created them to be. I'd love for you to grab my free biblical affirmation cards so you can start renewing your mind today and finding that freedom. And if you're feeling stuck in any area of your life, schedule a free breakthrough session with me. The link will be in the show description. Hello, Jeff. How are you?
I'm doing well, Violet. How are you?
I am doing good. I am enjoying some sunshine, seeing the sunshine out the window today.
Same. Yeah, no, it's especially in the Northwest where I am. It could be a little rainy, so we're definitely encouraged by the sunshine as well. So thanks
Yeah,
for
yeah.
having me on your podcast today.
Oh, you're so welcome. So I'm excited to hear what you have to share, and I know it's going to be encouraging.
I hope
So
so.
just tell us a little bit about you before we jump right into to your testimony, but just give a little background on you.
Yeah, so I am a metabolic health coach. So basically, helping people with nutrition and movement to really optimize their metabolism so that they can lose weight, be healthy, and happy throughout their life. And I have a Christ-centered business, and so definitely doing it through that lens. And yeah, just want to help others in a, kind of their health and wellness journey. And I'm married, happily married. The beautiful wife. We have two kids, a boy and a girl, and yeah, just really enjoy our faith and just sharing that with our kids and trying to get out in God's green earth and the nature and enjoy that as well when we can as a family. And
Oh, that's good.
yeah, just excited to see what God has in store as I embark on this journey. It's been a little over a year with the business, and it's been going well, but definitely encouraged by some things that are happening. So excited to kind of see how that continues to grow. But yeah,
Awesome.
definitely here to talk about the testimony today. So
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's awesome.
yeah,
To, okay, well, I'm just going to kind of give you the floor here and just
okay,
share what God has laid on your heart, and we'll go from there.
okay, sounds good. So I was raised Catholic and went to a Catholic school for about first through eighth grade. And definitely learned a lot about the stories of Jesus and God and you, about the rituals, and those kinds of things that go along with it. And I didn't really know any different that there could be an actual relationship with God. And so going through those years, went into high school and was definitely of the world in a lot of ways. And yeah, I was definitely trying to be a good kid, live by the golden rule as much as I knew how. But never really again had that relationship piece of the pie. And my family, they did a lot for me. They raised me in a lot of great ways. But from a faith standpoint, it was very much Easter and Christmas for our times going to church. And so I had some exposure there, kind of ongoing after finishing eighth grade and through high school, and then went to college and went to a pretty secular college and had some good experiences there as well. But again, nothing really changed with my faith at any point during that whole time. So it wasn't until after college and I had met my wife and she kind of became part of our group of friends. That was a very diverse group of friends in a lot of different ways. But there's just something different about her. And I just noticed just how she carried herself, just the way she treated others, and just a host of other things that kind of just stood out and were different than anybody else I had really come in contact with that was, in our age group. And so definitely was interested, and we were just, friends, kind of started out as that way, and then it grew into a deeper relationship. And she was the one who actually brought me to faith, or I guess kind of started me down that journey, so to speak.
Right.
So uh, there was a moment that I remember specifically where I believe the Holy Spirit came into my life and changed me forever. And I know that, some people have bigger or smaller encounters, and I know it doesn't necessarily have to be a certain way, but for me, this is just how it happened.
Right.
So I had graduated college and I was living at home trying to save to buy a house. And there was a point where I was looking and looking, and I was very ready to get out of my parents' house. I love my parents, but there was just, when you go to college and you come back,
Right.
it's you kind of lose some of that independence in some ways, and
Right.
just that kind of that oversight that's not intentional from parents, but it's just kind of there. And we didn't always get along. And probably remember this before I became a believer. So it's just, my dad and I butt heads a lot. He's, 100% Italian, Roman Catholic Italian, and kind of has his ways. And so we would often just get into just frustrating kind of not full out yelling matches by any means, but just arguments over a variety of different things. And so there was a point where we found a house and we bought it and we were fixing it up. And I was, very, very, again, very ready to move into that house. And I specifically remember um, this one day when we were working in the house. And prior to this moment, I had been dating my wife for a little while. I had gone to Alpha. I was listening to J. Vernon McGee on the radio. He was just starting Revelation, and had been going through that for a little while, and had a lot of questions. And the person that we had bought the house from, he was of faith and had given me some tracts, different things. So I felt like the Lord at the time, I didn't realize it, but he was, definitely trying to get my attention in a lot of different ways. And so at this point, I would say I was definitely on the path, but I still hadn't, asked for forgiveness and really surrendered my life.
Right.
So at this moment that we are in the house, it's a hot day, and we're up in the attic, and we're trying to, it's a small little home, but had a little pull down a staircase so you could go up, and we were trying to refloor the attic so it could be good for storage. And so both of my dad and I are up there in this hot environment, and given the history of my dad and I, there's definitely some butting of heads, and he is, definitely feels like he knows what he's doing, even though he does to a certain extent with home remodeling, not always the case with everything. But he likes to think so. And so there are definitely times where we were kind of frustrated while we were up there that day. And I remember there was a point where we were kind of at each other's throats, and it was really getting tense. And he just kind of said, "Okay, go get this tool down in the garage. I need this tool." And so I go down the stairs and I walk outside. I walk into the garage. I get the tool. And as I'm walking back out, I'm in the driveway. And I just stopped for a moment. And I just remember pausing and just closing my eyes and just said, "Lord, if you are real, please help me. I can't do this anymore." And I just remember this overwhelming just flood of like warmth and peace. It just kind of came over me from head to toes. And I just felt pretty much like immediately calm, after being in this state of, sweaty and hot and frustrated and all those things. I just had this really calmness. And so I left that moment, went up to the attic and gave my dad the tool. And I could tell he was kind of looking at me like, "Why? You're kind of different." Like something,
Wow.
in a sense. I mean, he didn't say anything, but just that I wasn't kind of agitated, or I wasn't, responding the way I had just, a few minutes ago when I was up there prior to getting that tool for him. And so, nothing was said. We just kind of went about our time. And from then on, I just was reading the Bible more and more, and eventually got baptized, and definitely was on a trajectory to be, on fire for Christ. And there's a lot of things that I was kind of getting into and excited about, and learning, and just, wanting to share my faith. And yeah, so it's just been a foundational part of my life from really that moment forward. And I feel like the Lord has brought me through some challenging times. That was before I got married to my wife. Like I said, we had been dating for a while, and so we ended up getting married, and there was a lot of tension between my parents and my wife and I. And just it's unfortunate, but I feel like my father has a tendency to look at um, those that are not of the like the Catholic kind of way of doing things in a different light. And I think he had a bad experience with a relationship when he was younger that kind of contributed to that, but he's never really fully shared too much about, excuse me, too much about it. Um, but there's just always been that like, well, like being Catholic isn't good enough, and so being that my wife, kind of brought me to this other direction that he wasn't used to, even though it was, the same faith, same Jesus. Um, the practice is definitely different, and my dad's, view of it is definitely different than my view, and I understand because, growing up going to Catholic school, it was definitely just kind of a box that you check. You went to church, or it's part of who you are. Just like somebody could be Italian or, um, you know, Russian or whatever. It doesn't really matter. It's the fact that, it's just a part of your culture. But he really hadn't gotten, and still has not, unfortunately, gotten past that point. The relationship we have has gotten better in some ways, and just it's kind of the same in other ways, but I'm definitely at peace with that part of things. But yeah, it's just it's definitely was unique for me to see that contrast of how I grew up and how I saw faith versus when I prayed that prayer and really came to a true faith, and really knowing now the difference, and how the Lord really does work in our lives. And the more we seek him, the more he comes, draws near to us.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that our life's going to be perfect, that we're not going to have, pitfalls and different things by any means. Because we're still human, we still make our choices, we still have free will, and we still have the flesh side of things. So, but he's there through it with us. And
Yeah.
that's the biggest constant for me. Is just the peace that surpasses all understanding is so true, that you don't have to ride the roller coaster of life, the ups and downs. Things are much more at a balanced up and down, more or less, than an extreme up and down. If you really lean into Christ and your faith, and his faith is really about trust. And it's like, who do you trust? Do you trust that the bridge is not going to collapse when you go across it? Do you trust that your chair is not going to collapse when you sit in it? It's that kind of faith where you put your faith into something wholeheartedly, and trust that it's going to be there when you need it. And that's the works, I guess, part. Like, we're saved by faith, but our faith, without showing that we have faith in some way, some actionable way, then our faith is really not a true and living faith. And so
Yeah.
I think God allows things to happen in our lives to put us through experiences that build our faith, that strengthen our faith, that challenge our faith to grow and strengthen that faith. And that's kind of the journey, is to get closer to him and more like him as we go about those experiences. So it's
Right.
definitely been true in my life, and I could definitely look back at that one moment as kind of the pivotal moment, even though I was definitely leaning into him and he was bringing people in my direction prior to that moment. That was definitely a definitive moment of change for me, and my life has not been the same since, and I'm definitely better for it and very thankful. And yeah, that's kind of my story, I guess.
Wow. No, that's wonderful. And the fact that where you said, God was bringing people around you, and just in not just one way, but just, through your life and through this, the things that you're hearing and the teaching and stuff. And just that fact that you took that moment to pause. You took that moment to pause out there, and he met you right where you were.
Yep.
And he does that. When we call out to him, and when we call out him, and I think we really, we mean it. He knows our heart and
Yeah.
everything. And yeah, that's a beautiful picture. And you're right, not everybody's testimony or everybody's time when they've come to know that, the Lord is not the same, but everybody has that story, has that, that just the definitive moment, I think, and stuff. But
Yeah, where you come to the end of yourself and you're finally ready to
yeah.
be vulnerable in a way that you haven't before. and
Yeah.
something just powerful that I think God waits for that moment because he knows that that's going to be something that's going to really latch onto you for eternity, that moment.
Right. Right. So, but no, that's wonderful. And I'm sure from there, that foundation has helped guide the rest of your life and your decisions and into the
Absolutely.
marriage and having their kids and how you raise your kids and everything to help
Abs-
there.
Absolutely. Yeah. My wife, she's been a rock. She's been a believer for since she was a little kid. And so, she's taught me a lot. And so I feel like really partner well together and try to grow and sharpen each other as best we can. And definitely not perfect in any way, but it's just a blessing to be evenly yoked, as they say, and how we see the world and how we want to raise our kids and the priorities that we have and the give and take and just really try to model what we understand from the Bible as to what that relationship should look like and how we want to instill that in our kids. Knowing that we still live in the world that we live in and we don't live in a bubble, but there's definitely times for conversations about certain subjects or being exposed to things or um, allowing even with the health knowledge that I have, I still like, I don't want to prevent my kids from having, maybe some of the sweets that they enjoy, but we try to educate them as to, why certain ones are better than others and really try to help empower them to make good choices, but with just the knowledge of what's healthy for their body and it's surprising that a lot of things that they do are really encouraging, and they still have their fun moments and things that they enjoy as well, but just with the nature of what I do, it's just encouraging to see that even at a young age, giving that freedom in not a complete here you go kind of way, but just in a way that's appropriate for their age, that they're able to take that and run with it, and that'll expand and hopefully grow as they continue to get older. So
Right. It sounds like you're empowering them to make good decisions instead of just making them and but giving them the foundation and the knowledge and then letting them have, being able so that be able to oversee
right,
them as
yeah.
they're making the decisions and stuff, but you're giving them that is really good. That's good.
Yeah, it's not
Love
this
that.
complete pass to do whatever, but it's definitely um I don't know. It seems like a healthy way to allow them to be a part of their own future and decision making and within some boundaries,
Right,
Yeah.
right. Well, the verse that comes to my mind is, train up a child in the way that they should go. So it's that training, the training them and stuff. I wanted
Yeah.
to ask you one question. Uh,
Yeah.
you was talking about how God was, directing you or, putting people in your path. And I think you said you were going through Alpha or something about Alpha.
Yeah. Are
What
you
is
familiar
what
with
is that?
So Alpha was a program that my wife's church at the time was putting on, and it's kind of the fundamentals of Christianity, and it's an environment that they create where you can go and they just encourage you to ask as many questions as you can think of, and it's just kind of that beginning step, Alpha being kind of A, it's like the first kind of um,
Right.
walk into the faith, and if you're skeptical or any of those things like those, they welcomed that skepticism and just wanted to create that environment for very new people to what this could all be about. And so yeah, I felt like that was helpful and powerful in its own way too, to kind of get things going.
Right.
And I was very much into, like, at that time, kind of mysteries or the future or what's going to happen. And so the book of Revelation was perfect, that I just, started on the radio listening, and it was literally the first book of Revelation, Jaber and McGee, um, and the Bible bus, all that was
That's
going
good.
on. And so it was definitely a good point in the Bible for even me to start to get interest and desire and build on that curiosity that I just had naturally to just things of the future and kind
Right.
of, so.
I never heard of that alpha, but I like that because where they can ask the questions, and because it's discovery,
Yeah,
and and even talking about, in the revelations, and that you're not, just your natural curiosity and stuff. And that's just another thing that God speaks to us in our language. He speaks to us through the things that, that we can relate to, and that that we're comfortable with, and that we, know. Just like in the Bible, he talked with the parables, and through the parables, and he talked to in the languages of what they knew at that time. And that's just beautiful, because that just shows how diverse he is. Just another showing of how diverse and how awesome he is, because he can relate to each of us in our own special way, that we can have that connection, and that's part of that connection as well.
absolutely. Yeah, he knows us so intimately, all the hairs on our head, and so he knows exactly the way to share what he wants to share with us in a way that's going to resonate well with who we are, just naturally as human beings. And yeah, it's pretty special when you actually look back and see like all the really individualized ways that God was working even before you even realize he was.
Yeah, yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. So, throughout your journey, that, since you've been, on this journey, and everything, is there a Bible verse? Is there a passage or a verse or something that's you've kind of like, oh, this is kind of my lifeline, or this is, and not everybody has them. I know some people have, it's like, oh, this is kind of my go-to verse when I'm going through things. But do you have any kind of go-to verse?
Um, I don't necessarily have any go-to verses. I feel like there have been different times in my life where certain verses have stood out to me,
Right.
and have been helpful in that moment. But I don't feel like I have, at least one's not coming to mind that
Yeah,
is
no.
my this is my go-to kind of verse. My favorite book of the Bible is James. So I will
Okay.
say that. So there's a lot of powerful things in there for me, and I think it's for me at least, it's a healthy combination of kind of the spiritual, practical side of things. There's just so much that you can really apply to life, and like faith without works is dead. Just really knowing that it's not about works, but our works show that we actually have a real and genuine faith. And
Right.
um, yeah, so I think just I really try to be open to whatever the Lord is going to show me in terms of verses at any given time. And yeah, there's just been some that have really helped point me in the right direction, and really help strengthen me and guide in different moments in my life.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I always like to ask, like, knowing what you know now, because we just talked about how you look back and you saw how God was there, and, different things. But knowing what you know now, what kind of maybe advice or encouragement would you like to leave, with the audience, and especially someone who's maybe on, kind of on that journey, or, they don't have that relationship yet. And, but just what would you like to kind of leave with them there?
Yeah, I guess I would to just be open-minded with faith, I guess, in the spiritual side of things, um, and to really take the time to think about, okay, everyone is eventually going to die, and not just living life for life, but thinking beyond that. And not that you have to live your life, always for eternity and what's ahead, because there's definitely things that are important and relevant now. But
Right.
I think just to really have self-reflection, to really take the time to think, am I really, what is my life really, what's the direction? What's going on? How, what's my anchor? What's my found, am I just going through life and just getting up and, getting my coffee and, heading off to work and, doing the holidays and, vacation once a year, whatever that is, looks like for people, and then on to the next year and on to the next year, that there's got to be more to it. And I think just really taking the time to stop and think about that and not be afraid to do that. And then, just to really ask, God or whatever they believe it exists outside of themselves spiritually at that moment in their life, to just reveal yourself to me, or help me understand, or help me just have a better understanding or sense of what my life is for, or just really kind of looking beyond just the mundane, cycle of life and making money and doing all those things that are important in their own way, but that there's just something more, and really, really desiring to know about that, and
Right.
taking the time to really focus on it, I guess.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Because, he doesn't, God doesn't, um, he doesn't oppose our questions. I think
Mm.
he invites them. He wants us to know him.
Yeah.
And so, he invites that. I know sometimes you may not, but I know sometimes you kind of grow up, depending on how you grew up, sometimes you got kind of can be people can think, well, I'm not supposed to question God or anything like that. But, that's where, and asking the questions and stuff, that's how we get to know him even more, and I think of our kids, especially when they're a certain age and, and they're always, why? And I
Right.
think
Always.
that, I think God welcomes our whys, and especially when we're asking them and we really, and we're really seeking him and we really want to know. And I think he's more than ready and more than willing to, to have that conversation and those conversations with us. So, uh,
No, absolutely. I really feel like above all, no matter what, I think God really wants our attention,
mhm,
and
yeah,
to really just, just stop kind of being so busy, and not having that time
yeah,
to just be still and know that I am God. I feel
yes,
like we have a hard time being still, especially in Western part of the world, that yeah, I think we just get so distracted and so preoccupied and so focused on other things, that even if, like, we're yelling at God or just giving him the attention, I think is what
yeah,
can really lead to something deeper and more. Um, and
yeah,
he's just waiting for us to take a few moments and focus on him in whatever way that looks like, positive or negative to us. It's just
right.
the attention in general that I think he's just waiting for, and then he can use that to
Yeah,
work what he wants to do in our lives. So
yeah, I think that's wonderful.
mm,
Well, I certainly appreciate that you're coming on and
yeah,
sharing.
thanks for
Uh,
having me.
like I said, I I think this is out there because there's people that, they relate to us. And I think a lot of times people may think, well, nobody can relate to me, or nobody's else asking these questions, or this isn't happening. And it really is, and everything. And so when we can share our testimony, then, like I said, I don't know who will hear this just when and everything, but I know that, God will take this and use it to encourage others and to use it to draw others to him. I do believe that he uses all things. But again, I just want to thank you for being on. Um,
Absolutely, my pleasure.
and then we'll have your contact information in the show notes as well,
Mhm.
for people who are looking to learn more about the health and be able to do that more like holistically and stuff. But and
Absolutely.
I always close. I always want to leave the reminder with everyone that the verse from Isaiah 43:2, it says, "When you pass through the waters, I will be with you, and through the rivers, they shall not overflow you. When you walk through the fire, you shall not be burned, nor shall the flame scorch you." So, and I want to encourage you that if this episode has been encouraging you, please subscribe, and share it. We never know who's needing to hear these different things. And if you're feeling stuck in some way, then please, schedule a call with me. I'd love to talk with you and pray with you. And we're here because we want you to know the God that we know, because he is real and he wants to know you very much as well. So have a
Absolutely.
good day, Jeff, and
Thank you, you
everybody.
too.
Till the next time, we'll see you next week.
Take care.